Hello, everyone. Welcome to this webinar on events for everybody. I'm Manon David. I'm not supposed to be the one hosting this webinar. So my colleague Julia had a very, very last minute problem. You know, one of those things where your computer throws a tantrum and doesn't let you connect to anything. Of course, it happens 10 minutes before and not an hour before. So I'm excited to take over for a few minutes. Julia should be with us very soon. For the next hour, we are going to be talking about some of the many ways you can make your next event more accessible and inclusive for everyone. So I'm your host. I'm used to be the Getaboutable conference coordinator. I have some experience in organizing events since I've been organizing the Accessible and Inclusive Tourism Conference for 2 years. Julia has a lot more than me though. To start today, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands that I'm speaking to you from today. And acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which each of you are calling in from today. I would like to pay my respect to elders, both past, present, and emerging, and extend that respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people present here today. Sovereignty has never been ceded. It always was and always will be Aboriginal land. I would also like to acknowledge our leaders in the disability rights movement who have and still are paving the way for equity. For the chat function, it accepts dictation through softwares like Dragon Naturally Speaking, and we will be taking questions as we go. I will be collecting all those questions, and at the end, you'll get a chance to see Julia and Georgie going through those questions. So please feel free to interact in the chat. If you are having any issue, don't hesitate. I'm here to help. So here with me today is Georgie Martin, the People and Culture Coordinator of the Corner Group, who manages 3 properties, including one of Melbourne's iconic venues, the Corner Hotel. And of course, we'll also be hearing from Summer Farrelly, who unfortunately could not be here with us live, but we have a pre-recorded interview with them that we will be sharing during this event. So, hi, Georgie, and welcome. For those who don't know, do you want to give a bit of a background about the Corner Group to start with?
Thank you very much for having me here today. So the Corner Group, we're an independent pub group based in Melbourne. We've been operating venues in Melbourne for about 25 years. We're relatively small in comparison to some big pub groups out there who have dozens of venues across the country. So we just have the 3 venues. We have 2 music venues, which is the Northcote Social Club in Northcote, the Corner Hotel in Richmond, and then another kind of bar pub as well, the National Hotel in Richmond. The Corner is our biggest and probably most well-known venue. And the current owners, yes, have had that venue for 25 years, and they're still very much involved in the day-to-day running and managing of the venue. We are in Richmond. We're less than a kilometre from the MCG and Amy Park and Rod Laver Arena. We have thousands of people through our venue in Richmond every weekend. It's a very busy place. We also employ about over 100 people at that site as well.
That's pretty impressive. It's an iconic venue in Melbourne. Julia is from Melbourne, and I got a chance to chat with her about what she knew and experienced from the Corner Group. So she was pretty excited that you could join us today, and I am as well. could you tell us a bit more about what motivated the Corner Group to start on your accessible and inclusive journey?
Sure.
I think it's an amazing journey that you've been through. So if you want to share.
And we're very much still on it as well. And we're always taking feedback and looking for things that we can continue to change and improve around the venue and in the information that we give out to the public and to artists and customers. So probably around 6 or 7 years ago, we did some major renovations at all 3 of our venues, actually. We took that moment to kind of take stock of where we were as a business. I've been with the business for about 12 years, so I've kind of seen this journey as we've gone along. But we took this moment when we were doing these renovations to look at where we were and where we sat within the industry, what our customer base was and how we wanted to go forward with our businesses into the future and be people who are leading the pub game, I suppose, and leading the industry in this mid-sized music venue space, and how we could continue to build on best practices so that we had safe, inclusive venues for customers and artists and for our staff as well. So in terms of accessibility, when we were building this strategy for our businesses, we wanted to make meaningful changes. So we're making changes, obviously, to the physical businesses, having lifts and ramps and installed, and also then in the design process when we were redesigning buildings, we were making sure that we had a majority of the spaces had ramped access as well, and how we could incorporate that into the design. And then we were also looking at really how we can, as a business, remove the burdens of accessibility and from the customers and make it a focus of the business instead. So how we could remove barriers for our customers, and by having better physical spaces, but also more information and out there of what the businesses look like, what the venues look like, what we had on offer, what we could do to have the customers have a more positive experience when they came through. And this was kind of, so that's when we started looking at what information we had, who we could talk to, who we could get guidance from, what lived experiences from people in this space could tell us and teach us and audit us, and started building from there. So
that is pretty amazing that you went through this. And I guess it's what I hear from you is you're trying to take away the burden that was on the customer. Like, you really looked at it as it's our responsibility and not our customers or clients' responsibility to take all that burden on themselves. And I think that's pretty amazing. Look, what caught our attention here is that you've made here at Getaboutable is that you've done an exceptional job with, and it's something simple everyone can do right now for little to no cost to improve the accessibility and inclusion, and that's making the information available, accessible. So can you tell us a bit more about what information you included on your website across your 3 venues, how you worked? You mentioned that this was one of your big thing, but what information did you decide to put there? And how did you, because I know that's something that can be difficult for all venue to decide, is how do you triage what information you should put so that's not to overload, but at the same time put all the relevant information that people will need?
Yes. So what we were hearing when we were speaking to organisations like Arts Access Victoria was that accessibility information is often something that you have to call or you have to email to find out. It's not front and centre. It's sometimes hidden away on a third or fourth page, down a few rabbit hole links on people's websites or different organisations' websites. So one of the most simple things we could do was to have accessible information as one of our top headlines at the top of the page. So like we have, you make a booking, here's the gig guide, the menu, and accessible information. So it was front and centre for everyone. It was accessible, as the nature of it should be. And on that page, and we recognise that we're an able-bodied person, and the people we're writing this information with in our management team were also able-bodied people and didn't have any of our own accessibility needs. So we recognised that we needed to go out and talk to people and hear from, get advice on what to include. Hi, Julia. So you
Hey,
joined us.
everybody.
How are you?
I am so sorry. My computer decided to chuck a little fit and had to reboot everything. Thank you, Manon, for stepping in.
I'm glad you're with us now.
Well, I am so happy that you're joining because we're getting to the interesting bit, and I'm pretty sure that you're going to have a lot more to share with our audience than I do. I'm going to get out of here so that you two can take over. Thank you for your patience, everyone, with coping with me. I was asking Julia just before you arrived and Georgie started replying how like they had work on making their information available on their website, and how they had worked on deciding what type of information should be there, and how they made it actually accessible. So that's where we're at. See you soon, everybody. I'm going to jump on the chat and be there to answer any questions. Thank you so much, Georgie, and I'll be there.
So, Julie, I was just talking about our accessibility page on the website and what we chose to include on that page. So we obviously put in how to contact us so that people could ask more questions. But in that contact information, we also included a link to the National Relay Service and their phone number as well. How to get to the venue was such a simple thing, but really different versions of how to get to the venue. So, and distance in metres to the closest stops. So the tram, the train, the bus stops nearby, which lucky being in Richmond, we have a lot of public transport options. We also put information there about Richmond train station, because it isn't the most accessible train station. It's quite an old one as well, so people were aware of what they would be facing if they chose to catch the train into Richmond. One simple thing that we also did was we spoke to Uber, we contacted them, and we had a set Uber pickup spot designated for the venue. So at the Corner Hotel, wherever you are within that building, if you order an Uber, it'll always send you to the same collection spot, so that there wasn't going to be this hassle of trying to figure out on the Corner Hotel, we're on a corner of a block, which side of the building or where you needed to go. And we designated a pickup spot that had ramped access from the footpath to the road, had 24-hour lighting, it has security cameras as well, and it's the first and last spot where security guards start and finish their shifts on busy nights as well. One of the easiest parts and what we did was we got one of our staff members with a fairly rudimentary camera, go around the venue and take photos of all the entrances, all the bars, the dining spaces, and quite a lot of the band room as well, and the entrances to where the bathrooms are, and lifts and points of access as well. And we just captioned those with the description. We've had feedback recently that we need to actually put in better captions, so that's something we're working towards. And
that's great, because I think it's very underestimated how helpful photos actually are, and it's something
Yeah.
that's very easy for everyone because cameras on phones. It's something that's very easy and simple that people can do.
Simple. It was more or less free as well. It was just taking the photo, then adding it to the document. And with that, we were fortunate enough to be able to speak to Google and have them do a 3D walkthrough of the venue as well. So we understood also that coming to a new space can be quite stressful for someone, and that if you can, before you arrive, get an idea of the layout and the entrances and where you're going, if it's just more of those barriers that, to actually coming to the venue that we could remove. And on that accessibility page, yes, we also included information about service and what our staff were able to help with in terms of moving furniture, that we had different heights of tables, different service styles, so you could order with a QR code, or if you needed a menu, or if we needed to use a communication board as well. We had an example on our website of communication boards, which we have behind the bars, so that for non-verbal customers, or even for customers which we've learnt in recent years who are finding it difficult with masks, where a lot of our staff wear masks at work, using a communication board was something we included in there as well.
And you can actually download those on your website, I think, for the customers. Or the customers
Yes.
can download those.
Yes, yeah.
Can you just quickly talk about what the communication boards actually are for people who may not be aware?
Yeah, sure thing. So we custom made ours in our office. And luckily we had someone who was a lot better than me on some Photoshop and in design. So we included an alphabet and also keywords that we see in ordering situations. So for us being a pub, we had, pot, pint, glass of water, glass of wine, and also images of different services, different ways people could pay as well. So if they needed cash or FPOS. I think it also includes, so I don't have it in front of me, the questions, so bathroom, ATM, exit, and then for the band room and downstairs, it also includes images of tickets and a prompt for using a guest list as well, so that people coming through the box office were able to use those kind of terms that we know that are used very often in our business. We also included accessibility information, details around companion cards. So we've run a companion card system through our box office for as long as I can remember, so over 10, 12 years, where anyone who has a companion card, we reserve capacity in all of our shows in our band room and make sure that there is space at every show for people to bring their carers or companions with them, and that's free of charge as well. And it is used regularly, and it's great because we've seen, since we've done some renovations and included this information and had it out there, we see an uptake in people kind of using that as a way to access music, live music and performances, because they've felt comfortable being able to bring someone along with them, and it's financially accessible as well. They only have to purchase one ticket and they can have their carer come with them. In terms of the website, we also use that as a training tool for our staff. So when they're onboarding or joining the team, we take them through that website as well so that they're comfortable with all the information that's being given out to the public. We ask them to ask us any questions So then if they're answering the phone or answering an email on behalf of the business, they've also got all of that information as part of them starting with the business, part of their induction and orientation when they start with us.
Which I think can sometimes get lost in a lot of businesses, that they have all this wonderful accessibility. They might even have it all on their webpage. But if you're speaking to someone at the venue who doesn't know anything about it, it's really hard to get past that. And then usually they have to call someone and you're just sitting there going, what is going on?
It's awkward for everyone, I think. We want the customers to be comfortable, and we want the staff to be comfortable, and that they have all the information themselves as well. And that's, so that has become part of our induction orientation process, like I said. We also include that for all of our security. So our security are contractors, but if they're a new security guard coming into our venue, we have them do an on-site induction with us, which includes all of that accessible information as well, because they're often the first point of contact because they stand at the front door. And so they need to be comfortable with that information. They need to know where everything is, how everything works, how to direct people to certain entrances or bathrooms that they might need, and all those things as well. So these are all fairly affordable ways that haven't cost us anything. It's just developing, I suppose it's a bit of time, and making sure that we're consulting with the right people so that our language and the information that we're actually offering was all there. We hadn't missed anything. And then just putting it up on the website and teaching the staff. So in terms of the information, it really is just, it's quite affordable and quick. And we hope that it's been making a difference as well.
Well, we love that it's so comprehensive. It's just it's so hard to find, and I love the philosophy of the corner group is, taking the burden off the customer. That we were discussing yesterday when we had a pre-meeting. Did you want to talk about that sentence that we picked up on?
Yes, we spoke a little bit about that before you were able to come back on. But this idea of the customer experience shouldn't be one that has kind of challenges around it. You should be able to know that you can make a booking with your friends or come to your friend's event or see your favourite band's show, and be comfortable with that experience and not have to, as part of making that decision of whether to attend something at our venues, then have to go on this journey of doing all your own research and calling us and digging in and finding out your own information, when we can give you all of that information, and then hopefully your customer experience is positive from that first point. Whether it's clicking on the website or making a phone call or receiving an invitation from a friend to go to dinner, you're comfortable from the get-go.
And platforms are making that more easier. I was recently inducted into the Humanistics platform as part of the oncoming role as conference coordinator here at Getaboutable. And it was just amazing to see that they have a whole section when you're setting up your event there, where you can put all the accessibility information. There are some you can check boxes for. There's other spaces. And that makes it easier for venues and event organisers as well, that they can see, okay, we just plug all this in here, then when your event page is up, that information is really easily findable.
Yeah.
I think it just makes it makes it easier on both parties, really.
Absolutely. And another thing I mentioned earlier was having the accessibility information at the top of the page, not hidden away. It's not 3 clicks down a FAQs page or something like that. It's up there. It has the same weight and the same importance as the gig guide on our website, and because as more information and the more we kind of remove these barriers to people accessing the venue, the wider our customer base becomes. And so you do get that payoff as, you know, more people are coming to the venues because it's an easier experience.
Yeah, and as a patron, it gets frustrating when you have to literally go hunting through. They're like Easter eggs sometimes on some websites, and you will spend a good chunk of your time trying to find it in all the pages, FAQs, and then sort of end up either having to ring the venue or just giving up because you don't have the emotional time to do it, because, you know, and it makes people not feel welcome also. If you have to hunt to find it, then they obviously don't care about their accessibility and don't, you know, they don't welcome you in.
Absolutely. No, well, that's something we've definitely took on board at the start of this journey, and wanted to make a change in our industry of how that information is portrayed. And
so I'm not sure if you covered this before I got here, but also, so on the flip side, so we've talked a lot about accessibility for patrons and attendees, but I think sometimes events forget that you also have to be accessible for your performers or your speakers. Side. Did you want to talk a little bit about that? Because I know you're starting to do some work on that side.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of speakers or conferences or forums, like what we're doing here, we are starting to get back to having quite a few more of them in person. Having the accessible spaces and ramped access through from our lift through to the function space as well has meant that we've opened up this market to a lot more people being out running their training sessions, running different forums, different events in our function space, because we've been able to provide that accessibility. Another interesting offshoot of that is that we've also started doing a lot of events for like local council, for City of Yarra in our instance, because we're able to kind of tick boxes for them in terms of what they look for in a space to be able to hold their you know, forums, and the local liquor accord forum or training sessions. We've held the Yarra Council's mental health first aid training session, things like that, where they're looking for alternative spaces. We've been able to provide that, and that's one side of the market which is opened up to us. And in terms of performance in the band room downstairs, we've been working with Tibby Consulting and started doing some fully accessible shows in the band room as well. There are still things that we need to work on. We have, you know, unfortunately, it's a really old building, so there are things that are physical challenges in terms of the heights of stages and distance between walls where we can't quite fit ramps in unless they're at, you know, an angle like this and things like that. But working towards shows that are able to include more people, so whether they have shows that have breakout spaces and quiet spaces so people can take a break from performances, shows that have mid-level lighting, so no low lighting, so that people can feel more comfortable in that space or navigate that space a lot easier. Shows also, recently we've got a grant from Creative Victoria to put on shows with Auslan Stage Left. So we're in the process at the moment of coordinating between some of the artists that we have on our calendar for the second half of this year and Auslan Stage Left, and they're getting together and getting their set lists together and rehearsing. They needed quite a bit of lead time as well. And so it's just exploring how we can open up the live music scene to more people. Often in our industry, and particularly in Melbourne, a lot of band rooms of our size, and this kind of mid-range size, which the Northcote band room is about 350 and the Corners one is 800. They're in old buildings and old pubs, and they're not the most friendly spaces to access. So to find an accessible show or attend an accessible show, often having to go to these larger places like the recital centre or the arts centre, and not all types of music are being played at those spaces. They're not, not places you can go to a gig and then, have a beer afterwards or watch the footy and do all those kind of have a social event. So trying to open up the market in our mid-size range as well.
Manon may have mentioned before that I've actually had a lot of experience with conference organising, so I thought I just might bring up a few points I've learned from doing that to help everyone with their event accessibility. One of the simplest and best ways to determine what people need with accessibility is to pop that question into your a registration form or your expression of interest form for speakers, and just ask, do you have any accessibility requirements? And if so, please share them with us, because that helps you from an event organizer perspective start to cater for what you can do and budget for what you can do. As we know, as event organisers, venue shopping is one of the hardest jobs. Trying to find what you need to suit the event within your budget, it gets very tricky, but you really need to choose and prioritise venues with good accessible infrastructure, such as tactile paths, possibly audio and hearing loops, wheelchair accessibility, braille signage. And from my point of view, the more you can use those venues, hopefully other venues will figure out that they're missing out on major events. Another one that's actually quite simple that can be done in-house is any printed material should be available in large print or electronic form that is compatible with screen readers or can be made bigger for the attendees with low vision issues. Quiet rooms are quite important, and I think we'll talk about that when we play Summer's segment. As we were talking about, Georgie, ensure your event staff know how to access or are aware of and know where all the accessible features can be accessed with. And another thing that I actually learned at AITCAP this year, it's a sunflower symbol. So this is for people with hidden or invisible disabilities, which sometimes, if you're asking for accessible accommodations, there can be a little pushback because people don't recognise your disability, and there's a lot of emotional labour of trying to have to explain that to everyone you meet. So maybe getting involved with the there's a website, the Hidden Disability Sunflower page, and where you can get where people can get badges and lanyards. I know Brisbane Airport is doing a lot of work with that as well. Also, don't forget your virtual events like we're doing today. Captioning, sign language interpreters, audio descriptions of images. So many things. I'm sure I've forgotten many, but that at least gives you a good start. Actually, speaking of audio descriptions, we're about to throw to the interview I did with Summer, who used some slides in her presentation. And each of the slides has the name of the feature that they're talking about and a photo to show what it looked like when implemented. They describe them as they talk. So Summer is an autistic advocate and inclusion and education consultant who has done some fantastic work making one of the local festivals in Bundaberg more accessible. And we'll have Summer slides available for download with the recording on our website. So I think we'll take a look at that because I have a feeling we might start running out of time soon. Yeah, Summer, and thanks for joining us today. Do you want to introduce yourselves to everybody?
Yes. My name is Summer Farrelly, and I'm a 15-year-old inclusion advocate, public speaker, and inclusion and education consultant. I'm also an animal-assisted learning program creator and facilitator, Animal Therapies LTD ambassador, and A-List ambassador. For the last 5 years, I've been sharing my personal insight and perspective on my social media platform as someone who has lived experience with daily challenges and barriers related to autism, dyslexia, ADHD, and my PTSD diagnoses. I share my personal perspective on having a late-diagnosed autistic mother, 2 autistic brothers, and lived experience as an autistic individual living within a family that consists of multiple autistic members, each with their own complexities, which provides me with a relatable and diverse perspective.
Great. I'm really happy you're here today because you've been doing some amazing things regarding event accessibility. So I know one of the things you've done is work with the Lighthouse Festival. How did that come about?
I wanted to help families enjoy quality time together without barriers. I wanted the community to access social spaces and have positive experiences. And at the age of 10, I was desperate to create equality within my community. So my idea originally was not embraced because the majority didn't see it as a need or just understand the reason for it existing at all. And so I decided the only way I could create change is sort of, I guess, becoming the advocate that I have become and educating others about difference. Because I've always been part of that family that leaves the event early because a family member is unable to manage or self-regulate their emotions properly due to sensory overload. I'm the family that struggles to access the community properly because there are so many unseen barriers in the world that shouldn't be as hard as they are, but they are, and it is just so easy to fix them. And that's the reason that I wanted to work with Lighthouse Festival creators. They're sort of the creators. Because I wanted to be able to stop that from happening, and I wanted people to be able to spend as much time as they wanted at an event, rather than just the first half an hour, 20 minutes, until somebody starts to have sensory overload or something along those lines due to an accessibility issue.
Great. And so do you want to tell us about the features you introduced at the Lighthouse Festival?
So, to start off with, Chi Out is a space to self-regulate when our bodies and emotions are feeling overwhelmed by the surrounding environment. It's just a simple tent that's, it has beanbags and fairy lights in it, and it's off to sort of the side where it's nice and quiet, and you can just go in there to chill out, Chi Out. Just take a breath, refocus, recenter, and then come out back into the main area when you're ready.
And a lot of, yep, and I was just going to say some events are now introducing these, they call them quiet rooms or quiet spaces.
Yeah. Noise-cancelling headphones are available to borrow to reduce noise for individuals with noise sensitivities, for example, during a fireworks show. Or just overall, events can be very loud somehow. I don't know how they do it. So many people. Borrowed Eyes was a vision assistance service I created. Members of the service were identifiable by wearing a red superhero cape, hat, and fishnet gloves. Very cool. Their role was to assist individuals with locating a friend, bathroom facility, stalls, or maybe describing the surroundings or details about the artwork on display. They were also used as an overall, help desk, except they move around.
That's a really great idea. I haven't seen that done before.
I got lost multiple times and used them.
See? Helpful for everybody.
Exactly. Visual communication symbols. Every volunteer will have a basic communication visual card to help people who may need assistance with verbal communication.
I really like these because they're very low cost to produce. You just need a printer and a laminator. Simple, easy, helpful.
And the ability to hand them to everyone.
Yes.
a disability rest stop or area with a microwave available, portable hand washing facilities and chairs. This space provides dignity for those who need privacy for feeding, for example, a peg-fed person, rather than using a car. The back of a car. Bags of inclusion are available for families and individuals to borrow who find their surroundings overwhelming. Inside these bags are things like sunglasses, headphones, thought blockers, fidgets, any sensory sort of stuff, and they can be borrowed and returned for the next family to use and borrow. Also included sanitary wipes to clean them if you feel. Yes. Conversation location is my personal favorite, which was a lounge room set up and similar to the school buddy benches, which I was unaware of the time, but they're pretty cool. But it's for adults, or anybody really. Sitting in this area indicates to people that you're open to having a conversation, meeting new people, and making new friends. I had lots of very interesting conversations and met a lot of very interesting people while sitting in that tent.
Yeah, it's great to have a place where people are, open to chatting to people.
And there was a box of cards which had conversation starters on them, and that was all sorts of things like would you rather questions, or if you were in this scenario, what would you do? Just in order to create that conversation until you found a topic that you both enjoyed and wanted to expand upon.
Yeah, with the conference I helped organise, we introduced, there's probably a technical term for it, but I refer to it as the traffic light peg system. So when you registered, you got a green peg, a yellow peg, and a red peg. And depending if you were comfortable talking to strangers or you were happy to talk to people, you put on the green peg. If you only wanted to talk to people you knew, you put on the yellow peg. And if you didn't want to talk to anyone, you put on the red peg. And it just made everyone more comfortable to approach people to talk to.
I love that system, especially because you're told so much. Talk to a stranger, like, hear their story, it'd be an amazing thing to do. There's that, but then you're also conflicted with the whole stranger danger scenario, where it's like, but I shouldn't talk to strangers. And I think just having that chair or area that's just sort of like, yeah, you want to talk to me about some weird life thing? Sure, it's great. Why not?
And some people are very anxious talking to new people also.
Yeah, which I definitely really liked about having the card box there, because there were so many scenarios of, I don't know what to talk about. Here we have a card. If I could commit one crime, what would it be?
And what was your crime?
I chose to rob a bank so I wouldn't have to be concerned about money.
That's always a good option, yes.
Yeah, and then we created a plan in a group of how to rob a bank, and I was talking to an old lady, and she knew a concerning matter about how to rob a bank. I feel like I should have been concerned there. It was a lot of fun. An assistance dog rest stop, which is an area for assistance dogs to go to the toilet and have a drink, because there is barely ever any marked out areas for that, or water for animals available.
Yeah, this is a very important thing and not something most event organisers think about. So did you get any feedback from organisers or attendees about how being more accessible and inclusive benefited them?
All the feedback I got was positive. Many families that accessed my inclusion ideas said that it was helpful for them to stay longer and feel a lot more accepted while they were there.
And do you feel like there was more people went to the festival that year than the previous year?
I mean, I would personally like to say I drew a crowd. But yeah, there were definitely a lot more people with disability accessing the event, knowing that it was going to be more inclusive or even just more sensory friendly.
Great. So the Divergence Collective are putting together 100 inclusion bags on your advice. Can you tell us more about that?
Tara, Sarah, Kylie, and Tammy are all very amazing people, and I was invited to have a Zoom session with them, their volunteers, and their students on placement with Divergence to educate on how and why the bags benefit the members of the community and just overall how important they are.
And so, as an autistic person, what are some of the barriers for you to attend events, and what makes an event more accessible and inclusive for you?
Personally, one of my largest things about going to events is the noise and just having so many people cramped into a way smaller space, all starting to talk over each other. So a quiet space that supports self-regulation and refocusing when I'm overwhelmed by my surrounding environment is absolutely amazing for me. And that's where having stuff like the sensory bags is awesome. And I actually normally carry all the stuff in those bags on me anyway for any sort of scenarios like that.
And what advice do you have for event organisers and venues who want to be more accessible and inclusive?
Consult with the disabled community. Consult with those of us who have lived experience and face these barriers every day. Way too many organizations organize events for the disabled community without consulting the actual people that the event is supposed to cater for. And they don't know what barriers they're actually supposed to be overcoming. And yeah, I think it's just the most important thing is to actually talk to the people who you're making this for.
Exactly. That's the most important thing you to do is consult and educate yourself. Is there anything else you wanted to share about event accessibility that we haven't talked about today?
I've just got a final note. I invite local councils to please consider facilitating some of the ideas of mine or anybody else at your community events. If a 12-year-old can create these inclusive projects and do a so-and-so job, an adequate job at implementing them, I'm sure you could probably do a lot more. Just saying. It's awesome. It's possible.
Thanks, Summer. I think there's some fantastic tips to get event organisers started. If you want to see more about what Summer is up to, you can follow her or email her on the slide we have here. And thank you for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
Just at the end, I wanted to say Summer shared a slide with how to contact her on social media. We'll be putting those up for people later, but they did include their Facebook, which was Summer Farrelly, the Instagram, which is autistic_perspective, the website summerfarrelly.com.au, and email address hello@summerfarrelly.com.au. We'll be, as I said, we'll be making this information available later, and also the slide presentation will be available. Georgie, I wanted to come back to you because Summer makes an excellent point about the importance of consulting.
Yes.
What was the consulting process the corner group went through, and how did that help you improve your accessibility and inclusion?
Yeah, sure. So we actually applied for a quick response grant with Yarra Council, which is our local council. I know Darebin Council, where we also have a venue, do similar grants. So I don't know if that's something that's kind of Australia-wide. But we used that grant, which is only a couple of $1,000, to bring Arts Access Victoria on board, which I think I've mentioned them before, but we had them audit the information that we had put together for the website at least. And then they also did a lived experience audit for us, and they didn't tell us when that was going to happen or what show it was going to be or who was coming. And so we paid them. They had one of their people who do that, their staff, go through the process of accessing our website, to buying a ticket, speaking to our staff, arriving at a show, ordering a meal, ordering a drink, attending a show and leaving the venue as well. And then they gave us a full audit on that experience, and that was really valuable feedback. And we used that for a lot of our training and to improve our processes and operations. We've also spoken with Tibby Consulting, who we've done the Groove Tunes shows with, who have provided us really valuable feedback, have been on site with us, who put shows together with us, also through the grant process as well. We've helped them, we've worked together to get grants, to get money from government bodies and Creative Victoria bodies to put shows on with them, but also use that as a learning experience for the venue. The consultancy is ongoing. Even recently, as far as the last 2 weeks, we were fortunate enough that Music Victoria, which is a government body, they provided a service where they audited websites for music venues, and they able to give us a whole lot of feedback, and which we're starting to work through at the moment. And I think, you and I spoke about this yesterday. A lot of the information we put together was, 5-6 years ago now, and even just phrases and language, it all changes and it evolves. And so that's been a really valuable resource for us as well, making sure that we're up to date and we're always evolving along. Our information evolves as well at the same pace.
And as we also talked about, it's always a journey. It is, yeah. It's always ongoing. There's always something evolving and improving, and it's really just a journey, not a destination with accessibility.
100%. And Summer's given me some great ideas there as well, and reminded me of some things we need to go back and to review in our own processes. And that's it. We take customer feedback all the time as well. We had a customer say that in the band room, when it's kind of dark, they weren't able to pick out who our security guards were because they're often in their own, black jumpers or
in black.
I don't know if you've been to a gig in Melbourne in a while, but everyone else is also in a black hoodie.
I was going to say, it's a winter uniform in Melbourne, black.
I'm today as well. I'm wearing a black jumper. So that's, feedback we took on board. And so all of our security guards, when they're inside and moving around, have big high-vis jackets on with corner security on them so they can be easily accessed as well. So that's something that's come from a customer, and we're always taking feedback and making changes where we can. And yes, it's definitely not, we would never intend it to be a set and forget process. And we'll write this information, we'll put it on the website, we'll write some training for the staff and security, we'll tell promoters and touring companies this is what we can offer for your shows, and see you later. We've done that. We've ticked that box. It's definitely a process. We're always improving, hopefully improving for the better.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask in particular, what were the different things you learnt from the people with lived experience of disability that you consulted with?
Yeah, sure. So one of the biggest things at the time was that we didn't have National Relay Service information on our website. And at that time, so things, this was a few years ago now, we were running a box office where you could purchase tickets over the phone. So with COVID, we've moved to all digital tickets, and it's an online process now. But one of the biggest points of feedback was that people weren't clear over the phone. So that was something that we could change. We checked that our lines were clear, that they were able to have that training for the staff over the phone, and that we were including National Relay Service information on the website. Other points of feedback from their experience was lighting around entrances. So you going into the band room, it all of a sudden became quite dark in that entrance space, that foyer into the band room, around our box office. So we looked at how we can separate those lights from other lights and make that space easier for people to navigate in terms of the lighting. So it's a bit brighter than the other spaces, so it was easier to look at a ticket or to get something out of your bag, do those things that you have to do when you're getting into a gig, all of those things. Yeah.
Yeah, we're starting to run out of time, which you think we've still got so much to talk about. We might take some questions before hopefully we can quickly cover what sort of results you've seen from increasing your accessibility. I guess the first question was, who did you talk to work on your accessibility? I think we may have covered that a little bit, but was there anything else you wanted to mention?
Arts Access really were a really big part of that process for us. And they also offer training, which we tapped into for our staff as well. They have a course, Creating Welcoming Environments, which is focused on, I'm not sure if that's still what it is called, it's what it was called a year or so ago when we last did that course, and we are doing it again. It is on our list to do in the next quarter. But it is a front of house focused course, so service industries as well. So they were a big part of that process of creating information and teaching the staff.
Great. So another question was, do you have any metrics about how patronage has increased as a result of these accessibility improvements?
Not in particular. It's more word of mouth and feedback that we receive. But no, that's not data that we collect specifically.
But you have seen what was I going to say? You have seen a difference since you improved your accessibility.
Yes,
yep.
Absolutely. A lot of the it's more anecdotal, I suppose. We do get a lot of emails, phone calls, and we're being invited to speak today. But this is how we measure that things are moving in a direction where we've broadened our customer base as well.
Yep. And can you book companion card tickets online?
Currently, I don't think that's available. We have just moved to Autistic, so we're still setting up our processes with them, and it is on our ever-growing list of things to work through with them, which is also integrating our accessibility information onto their pages. So when people use their website to look at shows, they will also get our information. Yeah.
And I guess one thing that people should probably know is you're going to get things wrong.
Yes.
We're all human. Yeah. You can't be perfect all the time. And it's not that mistakes are made or things are wrong. It's absolutely the way that you handle it as something. So
yeah. And we are always open to feedback. That's kind of how we've always operated. We don't think we're the best at anything, but we're trying to figure out the best practice and find the best ways forward. We're always happy to change and evolve and try new things as well. For sure.
I think we're running out of time, so I'm sorry if we didn't get to your questions today. Was there any final thoughts you wanted to add, Georgie?
I think I just really hope that perhaps we've given a few ideas to people who are watching this and have joined us today or watching it in the future online, of kind of affordable and easy changes that you can make to how you present your websites or your venue information or your event information, so that you can remove those barriers like we've spoken about. Yeah,
fantastic. And if you are interested in learning more, don't forget we have our Accessible and Inclusive Tourism Conference, which is a great place to start. You can purchase access to the last 2 years of content, and there's some great stuff there. This year in particular, we did a session with hidden disabilities and also chemical sensitivities and guide dog handlers, which I found really informative and is definitely worth watching to help cater to all different types of disabilities. We have just started planning AITCAP 2023, so we're going to have some exciting things to announce over the next few months. There's also our AITCAP Facebook group and Getaboutable Travellers community group, where members are encouraged to ask questions and share knowledge, which we welcome you to join. We'll be putting all those links in the chat and, of course, in the post when we do a roundup of what happened today. And a fully captioned recording of this webinar will also be available. I want to say a big thank you to you, Georgie, and to Summer for sharing your knowledge and experience. We want to thank Timo Lorenzo, who is part of the Travel Industry Mentor Experience, otherwise known as TIME Network, for helping us with technical setup. And thank you to everyone who joined us today. I hope you found it helpful and are motivated to go out and make your event more accessible and inclusive. We hold our conversation series every 2 months and hope that you will join us next time.
Thank you, Julia.
Thanks, everyone.